So in the call to action, there are these 5 pillars, and the first one is to recognize fraud as a global threat, because like Yiwen said right now, fraud has gone global, but our responses really must go global too, and have this kind of multi-stakeholder approach. And also to criminalize fraud, reflecting the nature of fraud in today's world and not the way it was like 100 years ago. The second pillar is the pillar of monitoring and sharing information. And there's a lot of information that the private sector has that can be shared with the public sector. And also private to private sharing of information. And there were a lot of discussions on that as well, like how to do it in concrete terms. Also to prevent and protect, because of course we all know prevention is always better than the cure. Then the fourth pillar was to strengthen law enforcement and criminal justice, really, training the practitioners as well, equipping them with the skills and knowledge to understand fraud in today's world. And finally, this key pillar, which we both, Yiwen and I, emphasize really, how this PPPs, how they are so fundamentally important in today's world to really combat fraud. So that was the one outcome, and there were 43 endorsements of that outcome. The private sector was not actually part of that call to action, so a private sector was not able to endorse it either. There were 40 member states that endorsed that outcome. Then the global PPP framework that has 6 principles. The first one being that it is our shared responsibility. We are all affected by fraud, and we all have to be part of the solution as well. The second one, again, kind of a certain overlap with the call to action as well, preventive and coordinated prevention. Third one, information sharing. And Andrei, like you mentioned, information sharing is clearly one of the key challenges and also responses to the problem. The fourth one, victim support, listening to them, kind of building resilience as well, so that we are able to bring the numbers down. The fifth one, education for public and businesses. And the last one, which is where the private sector is really good and strong, where the private sector is really good and strong, and where the public sector has a lot to learn, is innovation and adaptability. So those were the 6 principles in the PPP framework, and there we had 138 endorsements, including 85 from the private sector. So that was really exciting. And now, of course, going forward, we have to focus on the implementation, because clearly this, like we all mentioned, this was really the beginning, and now we have to make sure that those commitments are actually implemented and turned into action, like you said.
And how is implementation going to work?
So we're going to have a number of opportunities now in the coming months. There's going to be an intergovernmental working group and constructive dialogue, then the crime congress, then the conference of the parties and so forth. So we have this big event, but of course also together with you, Gaza, Andrei, and at Lisbon, that's going to be an opportunity to talk about the concrete actions. That's why we have established this safer network and all these different initiatives, so that we continue the dialogue and actually make sure that these commitments are turned into action collaboratively in that spirit of shared responsibility.
I think we found the especially global public-private partnership framework to be exciting. Don't get me wrong, call to arms as a political document is fundamentally important, right? Get all these countries to acknowledge publicly that fraud is an issue, and that we need to collaborate is critical. But I think the public-private partnership framework is essential because it's a model. Many of these countries don't have an agreed public-private partnership in the jurisdiction on any area of financial crime, and this. And by having their governments and these governments and other governments having signed up to it, and also the kind of the nature of the organization, of the private sector organizations to have signed up to it, demonstrates that this can work, that the intention is there, and that and companies and countries can take this to their own jurisdiction and use it as a model framework and build and obviously apply it, change it to their own kind of local requirements, of course. But the principal point is these can work. And there is the argument that we can't do public-private in this country does no longer applies. If it can be done globally, it can be done in every other jurisdiction. I think that's the principal element of which makes me the most excited about the framework itself. I thought it's also really worth looking at the UK, what's called UK initiative. We'll put a link into the chat. But which was a much more detailed version of a public-private partnership framework. I think there's a degree of recognition that not all countries could turn up something that detailed in the limited, I think, 4 or 5 months before the summit. International diplomacy moves slowly. But there was a limited group which developed a much more detailed document, which is fantastic and really worth a think. So again, a much more detailed template for what can be done, but also I'm hoping to see all these countries and companies implementing it. And another super exciting initiative, which is the tech industry, including all the largest players, some of the biggest companies in the whole world, all collectively agreeing to fight fraud through the tech accord. Some really exciting commitments there as well. We at GASA, of course, launched our Scam.org proposal, which is a fantastic chatbot, which we are offering for free to countries to use, especially developing countries without a fraud reporting center to use as one, and which we're very, very proud of as well.